Claire Davis for Mental Health Chats, and today I feel very privileged to have Tony Phipps with us, who is a former Royal Marine. Hello, Tony. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you. Yourself?
I'm well, thank you, Tony. And
Good.
Tony is going to talk about that topic that everybody finds difficult to talk about, which is suicide. And I believe that we need to bring up the topic of suicide, and we need to start talking openly about suicide, because the suicide rate in the UK is 15 suicides a day, and in Australia it's 9 suicides a day. However, a lot of suicides are not actually recorded as suicides because of the stigma behind it. So Tony, could you just tell us a little bit about your story in the Marines?
Yeah, so my first experience of suicide is when one of my own Royal Marines under my command took his own life. And it knocked me for 6 because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And I tended to beat myself up about it in not being able to see the signs to help the guy and intervene.
Yeah.
So,
understandable. So when you say you beat yourself up, what thoughts were going through your head at the time? What were you thinking?
Well, it was a lot of self-reflection, going back over that day, over that weekend of training that we did, to see if I'd missed any signs that he was in a bad place, or equally, was there any other kind of contributing factor like bullying, or was he having problems at home or in a relationship? And I couldn't identify one single factor.
So would you say that he seemed depressed, or would you say he seemed, you noticed anything about the situation?
No, he was what you'd call a grey man. He was a quiet, polite guy, which makes it even more difficult to understand, even for the future. You can almost say, okay, this is what happened, this is how it played out. In the future, I'll know to look out for A, B, or C, but it wasn't the case. Didn't have a clue.
Right. So in the Royal Marines, we've had a conversation before about this, Tony, and you actually mentioned, and do correct me if I haven't got quite the facts here, but there are more people in the Marines who take their own lives than are actually killed on the front line in Afghanistan and the Falklands. Is that correct?
So in the Falklands, back in 1992, there's been more servicemen that have committed suicide than were actually killed in combat. And I personally know more people from Afghanistan that have taken their lives than were killed in action. And to date, as of the 1st of January, I think 38 service personnel have committed suicide this year.
Really?
And that's with a support structure in place.
Right, that's very, very interesting. So you said this was you've given us the story of the first person who you were responsible for. So have you had many other people that were in your area in the Marines who did?
There's been other people that I know that have taken their lives actually during service, or often long time after.
Really?
And that's due to I think things sort of like bubbling up from the past that they've kept down. Many, and I speak for myself, compartmentalizing some of the stuff you see on operations, you put away in a box in the back of your mind to deal with later because the job needs to be done. And sometimes it just bubbles to the surface, and for me, felt like it was consuming me.
So can you tell me, Tony, for families who have to deal with a suicide that has occurred in their family or friends, close friends, what advice would you give them? A lot of people that I know are saying, why didn't I see the signs? Why didn't I notice? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I say this? What advice would you give them?
It's a difficult one. It's all about a support structure for those ones that are grieving, because the families want an answer. It's black and white. Why did he do this? They didn't see it coming, so something must have been going on underhanded. So I think it's the resistance to acceptance that it was suicide, and some people commit suicide, and it's always the resistance to acceptance that causes the pain. So it's about having a support structure so they can feel that grief in a safe space. In a safe space.
And do you believe, Tony, that people can spot the signs? Can see?
From my experience, I think it's very difficult. And from what I saw and from what I've been told previously, when someone decides to take their life, their mood actually improves, because when they make that decision, it's a solution to their problem. And when you've got a solution, you can invariably, your mood picks up. So you're even less likely to see the signs.
That's really, really interesting advice, actually. And for us who are still left here, we often feel that guilt. Why didn't I do something? Why didn't I say something? And it's a case of people can hide things. I know myself, when I've had down days, when I've been at work, I've hidden it. I've covered it up.
Yeah.
You say that's the same, or?
Yeah, and that's why all I feel I can do is encourage guys to share. To share what's going on. But better out than in. I often say, life's pressures can be like a beach ball that you push underwater. The further you push it down, the more pressure, and it just spring up and leak out in different ways. So by talking about stuff, it can act like a pressure release valve, so you don't get to that point of despair.
Yeah, definitely. So Tony, you've given us quite a lot of advice there, which is fantastic. So it's encouraging people to share. It's also making sure people understand that they are, they shouldn't feel guilty if it's happened to somebody who's close. I'm just intrigued because you keep saying the guys. So are there any women that you were dealing with as well, or is it mainly men?
It's predominantly male. Royal Marines are open to women too, but I think the environment of Afghanistan was that could be that traumatizing. It was almost different to so many other operations, and I think what the guys were exposed to, a lot of them were not prepared for. Yeah,
definitely.
The level of trauma is therefore so much greater.
Yeah, that's understandable. And do you mind telling us a bit more about your story, because you've got the other side of your story as well that I think.
Yeah, so I was in Afghanistan in 2005, and that was quite a kinetic fighting tour right down on the Pakistan border. So it was like 6 months of fighting down on the front line, split between the front line and being in the city, patrolling the city. And when you was in the city, you were patrolling in amongst suicide bombers, knowing that they were in town and having to still be on the streets. And as a commander, you've got to lead by the front, no matter what's going on internally. And like I said before, a lot of things that I did, a lot of things that I saw, I compartmentalized to enable me to get through it. And even when I come back to the UK and went through what's called decompression, those things still stayed locked away. And I suppose a part of me wanted to deal with it, the subconscious saying, you really need to look at this. But it felt like there was a guard stood on the front of that memory saying, you don't want to go looking in that dark corner, leave it well alone. And my life started to fall apart.
Did it really?
Yeah, marriage first, overnight. I had a business that started to suffer. And it was difficult because in the Royal Marines, everything's about success. Don't fail at this, don't fail at that. So when you start to experience failure, it impacted on me more because I wasn't used to failure.
And so if you could share with us, did that actually affect you? Did you ever think of taking your own life? Or
it got to the point where it built up so much. I also then decided that was the answer. And it almost took me back to, oh my God, the guy that took his life, I feel like I know how he felt. It wasn't despair. It wasn't like I need to reach out for help. It was, that is the solution. And it had a sense of calmness over me that I was content to do that without the other side of me that should have been thinking, you've got a wife at home, you've got 2 sons, you've got sisters. How selfish would that be? It was all that was like pushed to one side.
Right. Okay. And so you're obviously still with us. So what happened? Would you like to share that with us?
Someone spotted that something wasn't right, that I wasn't sort of like reaching down and expressing the pain through what I'd seen. So I talked about some of the events that I'd done and seen that had no emotion attached to it. And someone said, how can you be talking about that with any emotion attached? And I suppose I was in denial to where I was in regards to my pain. And the woman that could help everyone that was on the retreat said to me, I can't help you. And it really knocked me for 6, because I really looked up to her as someone that could look and help everyone out. And it was a switch. It was a switch that caused me to raise my hand and say, I'm going to take my own life. And you know what? I had no hesitation in saying it, but before that, I had no intention of telling anyone. So it was like a switch, a trigger to get me to acknowledge what I was going to do.
That's so interesting, because my belief is, and I'm not a psychologist, but my belief is that there is, for any mental health illness, there is that switch of that button. So even people with eating disorders, alcoholism, any sort of addictions, I feel there's that switch that means I'm going to stop this now.
Yeah.
So is that actually what you experienced?
Yeah, and it was quite surreal, because when I flew home, because I did the retreat in Holland, I sort of like reflected over the last few years prior to that and the build up to me preparing to take my life. And I said to myself, what advice would I give to myself now if I was going to do that again? And it was a case of, I would tell myself, you need to look at every single option, intervention, seek every piece of help you can get before doing what you're going to do. You need to exhaust every single avenue, because life is so precious, and you've given yourself a death sentence through choice, but everyone around you, you're given a life sentence of guilt and worry.
Thank you for that advice. That's really fantastic advice. And I think something that has really hit me here, and it's something I say to a lot of people when I'm training mental health first aid, is that we can't fix the problem for you.
Yeah.
I want to come and give you a hug, Tony. I know that you're just down the road, actually.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's quite cathartic. It's very cathartic to talk this through, because I feel in a privileged position to be on both sides and almost look at it from the outside in now.
Yeah, definitely. The people around you can't fix it for you. So we need to somehow work out, how can we support people who are in this situation so that they can fix their own emotional illness. It's an emotional illness. And what I call it, and I've called it so many times, is emotional fitness.
Yes.
We all need to be working on our emotional fitness. And it sounds now, Tony, as you are working on your emotional fitness continually.
So the moment I put my hand up and said I was going to take my own life was the moment that I took responsibility for my own mental health.
Good. And we all need to take responsibility for our own health. And that's one of the aims of these chats, is to help people take responsibility and understand that, and start talking. Talking is one of the best means of helping us with our mental health. Definitely. You just said talking was cathartic. So thank you so much for sharing your story. The advice you've given us is so much from both sides.
Yeah.
So those people who've had somebody who have attempted to take their own lives, we can't sometimes spot the signs. So not for that guilt, and also people are in, the other advice is that if we're in that position, get as much advice and help as we can.
Yeah, and like I've said before, we are here. You and I are here for a reason, and the chances of us being on this earth today is the equivalent of 2 million people standing in a long line with a trillion-sided dice, all throwing that dice and all landing on exactly the same number.
Yeah.
So why would anyone throw that away? We're here for a reason.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for ending on that. That's lovely. So we are going to continue with the topic of suicide, and I'm going to read this out because it's a long introduction for our next lady. The next lady that I will be talking to and having a chat to is a lady called 𝗁𝗵𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀, and she is an emergency care assistant on the 999 ambulances. And before that, she was an emergency medical dispatcher taking 999 calls. So she's actually going to be talking about, she's had a lot of experience in what do you do if you see somebody trying to take their life?
Yeah.
Because she's had a lot of experience both on the phones and on the front line with that. And 999, for those people in other countries, especially Australia, we've got a lot of viewers, is equivalent to the 000, the emergency calls. Yeah. So thank you very much, Tony, for your time. And I look forward to meeting you when we're allowed on one of our dogs.
A stone's throw away.
I can't believe we live so close. We're having a chat on the phone and didn't realise it was so close. So looking forward to meeting you one day.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.